Good morning, everyone. How's it going? Let us know where you're coming in from. Welcome to Office Hours. I'm here with Alex Sherwood. I'm super excited because, Alex, I have used many of your templates and incorporated them into my own workflow, as I'm sure many of you have. So I'm pretty excited to dig into today's topic. And also, if we do kind of veer off topic too, and there's other templates that you want to showcase, I love everything that you've been producing out there, like your OKRs template. So we can kind of leave a bit of time maybe at the end to dig into anything else that you want to go into more detail on. So I'm curious to know in the chat, are you already using Notion as a CRM? I'm curious if you have any specific questions at all before we dig in. If you do, please make sure to add them to the bottom Ask a Question area, and we'll do our best to answer them. And otherwise, why don't we dig in, Alex?
Great. All right. So shall I just, I've got a template that I've created here, which is basically a more advanced version of my CRM. So shall I just kind of run through the different elements?
Yeah, it would be cool to know. Maybe I'll put a poll up just to see if anyone here is already using a CRM and kind of like what level you're at. So I'm just gonna, and if you want to put that in the chat window too, it's always good to know kind of what level people are at, if they're sort of just starting or like they're looking for ways to make it a little bit more advanced. So I'm just gonna add that poll there. And yeah, let us know kind of where you're at with your CRM. Okay, advanced, people kind of want to see a bit more advanced, basic. Okay, right now it's like kind of split between basic and advanced. So we could just do a bit of a walkthrough of maybe kind of how you approach handling a CRM. And I know with Notion not having an API yet too, I know some of this stuff is a bit of a manual process too, right? So I'm just kind of curious, just some of the things that maybe have popped up for you and how you set it up, how you approach it, and maybe some of the variations and different ways people could think about it.
Yeah, sure. So there's already a couple of templates, I guess, in the Notion gallery, but the kind of angle that I came at this from was I'd been a Salesforce administrator for a few years before I kind of discovered Notion, and Notion actually has quite a similar structure in to Salesforce in terms of having relational databases that you can use. So you're linking tables to each other and kind of creating different types of records using those tables. So I was kind of curious to see how close I could get to actually creating something a little bit more like Salesforce that you would use in a company context. And it turns out you can get pretty close. So that's kind of what I've done here.
And did you start with an import of a CSV data, or did you just kind of start in Notion kind of setting up tables and figuring out what properties you needed?
Yeah, I started in Notion actually. You could do a CSV import if you had different exports for the different types of records that you wanted to create. That would obviously be a much quicker way if you had a lot of data to get started with already. But I guess you'd probably want to start with by creating the tables and kind of figuring out the structure and doing a bit of experimentation before you pull all of your data in, just to make sure that everything lands in the right place when you do.
Cool.
Yeah. So basically, to kind of run you through the template, I've started with my companies, which I've called accounts, just like Salesforce. So yeah, companies are basically accounts. Sorry, are basically office locations for different companies. And if you had several different offices for the same company, you'd create a page for each of those. I've got some basic information here, like who the owner is, so that who the person that is looking after the relationship with that company is from within the sales team. Who your contacts are, and I'll explain contacts in a second. You've got your office location, and I've just added a link in here. This is just a plain text field, but I've added a link to a map of the location, Google Maps. Your industry, in case you wanted to do any reports based on that. And then you can link these accounts to your opportunities and events as well, which I'll explain in a second. So then you've got your contacts, which are people who work at a particular company at a particular office location. So the owner here would be the same person who's managing the relationship with the company. You've got the contact name, their title or their role, how well you know the person, so your relationship, which again you can use for reporting and just for general reference. And then one of the cool things, features in Notion is if you link your events, which are just here, so these are pages that you create to make notes about meetings, you can link the events to your contacts. So you can see the contacts just here that you met with, and then use a roll-up field and pull in the latest date that one of the events that's linked to that contact
That's cool.
met you. So yeah, it's a really nice way to see, when you're due to meet the person next, or when you last met the person.
Amazing. I'm curious too, also the owner is being rolled up from what field?
From the owner
The
field
account?
in the account, yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Just to keep it simple and save you from
Yeah.
that getting out of sync. Yeah, and then you've got obviously email, phone, events, and opportunities again, for your reference. And then meetings is kind of an interesting one because when I was a Salesforce administrator, there's obviously like filling out this kind of information is basically admin work, right? And no one loves doing admin work. So I tended to turn a bit of a blind eye if people kind of didn't log all of their meetings and things and calls in the CRM. But it does enable you to have, to use this data in some really nice ways, like that last contacted field. So if you're willing to do it, you've got your events table here. I would just use a generic kind of the name of the page to record what type of meeting it was, but you could maybe have a drop down or a select property here instead if you wanted to keep things consistent. And then I've got a complete field here. So and that just lets you kind of filter the view. So if you've got, if you want to have a list of upcoming meetings and obviously see your past meetings as well, that would be this.
I like that.
And this is just ordered by date. Yeah, sorry, go.
No, just that every time I see someone else's setup, there's just these little nuggets where I'm like, oh, I could totally make my space a little bit more efficient. That's really cool.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, this can get to be a pretty long list, right? So I guess you want to narrow it down. And that's just a nice simple filter actually for the upcoming list. I've just done it based on date actually, so you don't have to kind of rely on remembering to take this as complete or not. You've got those columns as well for your reference. So that's your events. The next bit is I've kind of created two more tables to sort of run through before we get to the fun stuff with the opportunities, which are your sales. So I've got the individual products table, which is just a list of the different items you might sell. And basically the way this will work is you would record the price of a single item and then use product bundles to record the quantity of those items and maybe different combinations of items that you would sell to link to your opportunity. So in this case, you can see I've included this product in these product bundles there, and this will make more sense in the second one. So I explain product bundles. So yeah, product bundles are your way of basically creating different combinations of products. So for this one, for the starter pack, you've got one of these computers. It's pulling in the price from a roll-up field. You might always sell two of this product in the starter pack, or obviously you could create different versions of the product bundles if you're only selling 1 or 5. And then you can combine that with this other type of computer, and you might be selling one of those and this other computer. And these are linked to these opportunities, and I'll show you how that looks in a second. But ultimately, I've got a formula here which is pretty straightforward actually, where it's just taking the price of the items and multiplying it by the quantity, and then adding that together with the price of the product 2 and product 2 quantity, etc. And that gives you the total price of all of the items in your product bundle. And then that will feed into your opportunities. So is that all kind of making sense so far? I know there's probably a lot to take in there, but
yeah, let us know in the chat if this is making sense. If you have any specific questions, I'm already thinking that chart at the bottom could be a great way to kind of price your own services too. When you're thinking about like how much time does this thing take me, and kind of yeah. I'm always just getting ideas from from seeing these tables. Cool. Smart way to do products. Yeah, that's cool. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, a simpler way of doing this would be if you're only ever selling one type of thing. Obviously, you don't need to combine several different products and use the product bundles that way. So you could actually just have, you could make it as simple as just having a value column in your opportunities, or maybe just a price and a quantity, and then kind of figuring out the value of the opportunity from that. But even there, if you were selling sort of a multiple of a single service, it might make more sense for you to use something similar to product bundles, where you can have a page with a price, link that to your opportunity, and then multiply that by that price by a quantity. And that way, if you ever change the price of your service, you can update all of your opportunities at the same time, rather than having to go through and update them one by one. But
right, cool.
Yeah. So then you've got your opportunities. So these would basically be, or the way that I've used them is these would represent a single sales process. So if you'd spoken to someone at a company and tried to do a deal and it fell through, you'd close the opportunity, and then as soon as they re-engage, you'd create another one of these records and kind of track the sales process separately that way. And that just lets you kind of build out all of the different reports that you might want to have. So you've got that separate history, as well as your kind of up-to-date view of what's going on with each individual company. So again, you've got your owner here. I could have actually pulled this in from the account, but I set this up before I added the owner to accounts. And then your accounts contacts. Your close date would be the date when you're forecasting the opportunity to close. And this is a pretty key column when it comes to reporting, obviously. So it will determine, if you want to see your deals that are due to close in this quarter, which opportunities you see. You could even do some weighting based on this, but I've kept it fairly simple for now. Again, I've got this next meeting column in here for your reference, which works in the same way as it did for contacts. And then the stage, this is basically the sequence of different steps that you would usually go through for each of your sales deals. So unqualified would be, could be, you know that the person could use your service. If you don't know that yet, then maybe you wouldn't create an opportunity quite at that time. But once you've figured out that they could use your service, you get in touch with them, or you're due to get in touch with them, but you've not yet spoken to them and found out whether or not they want to use your service right at this point in time. Once you do know that, they'd be qualified. And then you might change the opportunity stage to negotiating. Once you're discussing the products and pricing. Contract issued would be when you've sent them the contract and you're waiting for them to return it. And then close one would obviously be a sale. close lost would be the person has said no, or they've said, it's not the right timing, can you get in touch with me later on? And then this controls the probability for the opportunity. So the idea here is, with most companies, obviously you're not going to win every sale that you go after. For some companies, it might be sort of 1 in 3 deals that you actually end up winning. And so the probability here just looks at the stage and converts that into a percentage. So if the opportunity is unqualified, you would only give this a 10% probability of being won. And then you'll use this in the value calculation that I'll explain in a second, to basically weight the total value of all of your opportunities, so you can get a more accurate picture of how much revenue you're expecting to earn within like any given period that you're reporting on, rather than just saying we're going to close 100% of these sales, and therefore the next 6 months is going to be amazing because
right,
money that we're bringing in.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
Yeah. So here I've linked the product bundles to the opportunities, and then just pulled in the product bundle price. And this is kind of the baseline figure that you would use to calculate the value of your opportunity. And then there's just an age column. I create all these opportunities today, so it's 0, but this just gives you a sense of how long you've been working on the deal for, basically. So then if I go back across to value, this is where you'll take the product bundle price and then adjust that based on the probability of closing the deal, which is controlled by the stage. And obviously, if you've offered the person a discount as well, this formula factors that in, and that gives you your overall value for the opportunity.
Cool. And I'm curious, Alex, do you have a template that kind of covers or has some pre-existing examples like this that people could see some of those formulas and be able to check them out?
Yeah, so the advanced CRM template was the one that I shared a while ago, which has all of these tables in it, and an explanation of, I think, all of the formulas as well. So yeah, I'll share that after.
Perfect. I'll copy that link too and put it in the area below.
Nice.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah. In fact, I mean, I've just
broke it down.
Here, so yeah, you can see it up there.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then once you've got your opportunities, I've got a dashboard that I sort of whipped up. So this is just a way to get a summary view of everything that you've got going on within the company. So I've broken this down by salesperson, which is just a nice simple filter, who the owner is, and then a couple of bits of criteria to show you your open opportunities, and obviously your lost opportunities if you ever want to check on those. Same for Chris, same for Cheryl. And then a team summary, which just the table view, I think it is. No, sorry, the board view in Notion gives you a really nice way to kind of summarize this info. Yeah. So this is just grouped by owner, and then a really cool feature is it's just summing the value of the value property from all of the opportunities that sit in that particular column. And then lastly, obviously, if you're doing some reporting, you'll want to see, maybe opportunities that have been close won last year. And again, I've just used a nice simple filter to pick those up.
And I'm curious, in this sort of system, would you be, like, I guess when you're doing the meetings with your clients too, would you store all of that information inside of that client's record of those events or those meetings? Do you kind of loop that in with your CRM, or do you have a separate system where you're kind of tracking project notes and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing obviously about Notion is you can kind of start off with something, even more simple than this, and then build on it. So in my experience, working at my current company, we ended up sort of using Jira to manage bugs. We're building an app, But then because we had all of our product ideas in Notion, it ended up making more sense to move the bugs into Notion as well. And just linking together, a series of different tables and kind of building out that ecosystem. So you end up with obviously maybe accounts being the hub, and then you could definitely link your projects to your accounts and kind of keep everything connected up that way and get a really nice 360-degree view of like what's going on with that company throughout the organization.
Yeah. Oh, I have so many ideas now for my own setup. Thank you. That's cool. Yeah, I love the dashboard. I love being able to see like by owner, because I know there's lots of people here that work with team members and sell multiple products. We have like jewelers. We have people who are selling courses, and I think there's so many interesting different ways you could use the CRM, not just in software world.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then, just a couple more things that I created, I guess, for this. One of the shortcomings of Notion compared to a dedicated CRM tool like Salesforce is you can't do validation for when people edit records. So with something like Salesforce, you'd be able to say, if you're creating an opportunity, don't let the person create it with a close date that's in the past, because obviously that should be impossible. You should only create opportunities that are due to close in the future. Notion doesn't quite let you do that, but what you could do instead is just use filters. And so I've created and linked databases. So I've created a page with a couple of different linked databases here and a couple of different filters. So what I've done is create the criteria that would almost be the opposite of your validation rules, which would be show me the opportunities that don't meet the criteria that I want people to have met, so that you can kind of chase that person and get them to update the opportunity. So here, for example, you've got an opportunity where it's still open, but there's no next meeting scheduled. So obviously the salesperson might need to get in touch with the company and schedule a follow-up meeting. Or you could have close dates that are in the past, need updating, or maybe you've just forgotten to complete a particular field when you created the page. So for this one, it would show you opportunities that didn't have a contact associated with them. And then the last thing I created was just, again, if you're part of a sales team, every now and then you'll be looking for leads, and one of the ways that you could pick up on them is just by creating linked databases again and applying filters to those. So this table, for example, would show you anyone that hasn't been contacted in the last 6 months, in case you want to get back in touch with them. And that's just a nice simple filter, which is actually based on a formula. So I've turned the last contacted date into the number of days that it's been since the person was last spoken to. So I've used this formula, just date between what's time now, what's time, or the date of the last meeting, show me that in days. And that just gives you an output where it's like, it's been 6 days since you last spoke to the person. And then this filter just looks for any contacts who haven't been spoken to in the last 180 days.
So that filter is actually a formula. It's not a property in the database. I don't think I even realized you could filter by formulas.
Yeah, well, it's looking at a formula field, and then you're using kind of another formula to filter that. So because it's a number column, you can do, has it been 20 days? And you could do equals 20 days since I last spoke to the person. Has it not been 20 days? Has it been more than 20 days? Has it been less than 20 days? And that kind of thing.
Freya, I know. What? How did I not realize this? This is it's already been worth it for this
Great.
alone. Very cool. Oh, that's
Awesome.
really great.
Yeah, so that was pretty much everything I could think of for this year and for today. So
That's cool. Like I hadn't like I love that you have like the opportunity validation and that you actually have these like different views that are only showing um, what's relevant. I love that. Freya, I just added a little link at the bottom called CRM. If you click on that, it's going to take you to our office hours link. And I try to, after the office hours, just add any templates and things in there that were covered. So I think it's your advanced CRM. Hopefully that's your accurate template there, Alex. And also attached Alex's Twitter account there as well. So it's not the same. It's not the same as the one you're showing us today, right? Is it?
it's actually a slightly more basic version, so I kind of built on that for this call. But I'll
Gotcha.
share this one afterwards, so
Perfect.
you can
Okay.
get the
We'll make
latest
sure that
version.
you've got make sure that you've got this version of it. That's cool. There was one question that popped up so far. Nate asked, any tips for using Notion at work when you are the only one at the office who uses it? Like, is there a recommended workflow for exporting reports from it? Thanks.
Ooh, I don't know. I, I don't know about exporting reports. I guess, I mean, yeah, these are all databases, right? And they tend to, if you export the CSV, then it tends to be fairly Excel friendly.
Right.
Um, I guess when it comes to reporting, you do generally like one of the really good ways of actually getting everyone else in the team to adopt a tool like Notion would be to make it the source for your reports. So um,
Yeah.
once you set it so that basically the manager of the team is kind of keeping track of all of the sales deals that the team is working on from Notion, it's really hard for people to obviously not use it and keep it up to date. Um, so yeah, that can work really well. But if not, just start out using it for your own use with something small and cool and show it off, and I'm sure people will adopt it in no time anyway. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's a great point. You kind of have to show, don't tell, right? And just like, oh, here, everything that you need is like really beautifully formatted over here, and it's super easy to access. And even having those like instructions, right? And like you could create a dashboard page, just having that built-in language that's really friendly, so that even if you're using a lot of tables and relations, that it's very clear what you're looking at, right? I think
yeah,
that's all you can kind of do is just make it so easy and so helpful for someone else accessing that.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
a good tip. Um, does anyone else have any specific questions about CRM stuff? And I don't know, Alex, if there's anything else that, um, again, I know you have so many other amazing Notion templates as well too, and stuff that you're exploring. Is there anything that you're really excited about right now, or that you've been playing with, or getting obsessed over?
Uh, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the OKRs template, so I can run through that if you like.
Yeah, is it? Hopefully, other people are excited about that too. I love. I was really inspired by Alex's personal OKRs, and I noticed a lot of people have just kind of adapted it and kind of done their own thing with it. And so I think it's just such a great starting point for how to track this stuff.
Yeah, I think you took a version of it actually, didn't you, and made a simpler version?
I think
Was
so, because like some of this is like a little bit more formal, I think, or it's like more corporate. And so for my own personal goals, I've kind of simplified it a little bit. But I just think, again, every time you see an example of what's possible, you can always just kind of apply it in your own way. So I think you've created some really great starting points.
awesome. Yeah, so the idea with this template was just to basically use the traditional sort of definition of OKRs, where you would set objectives for your organization or maybe for your team, um, and those would be the sort of broader vision for what it is you want to achieve. So something like grow your customer base, scale your project, or refresh your branding. But not actually set a measurable target at the objective level. and then what you do is you break the objective down, and that's where you set the measurable deliverables. So it's your key results that you use to kind of track your progress and break the objective down. So the way that I've structured this is you can kind of break it down by team, and obviously set an owner for each of the deliverables or key results in this table. And this is just feeding into your objectives table just here. So you've got your 1,000 more customers from referrals, target result there, current result, and then I've got a pretty crazy formula that I'm using there to kind of turn this into a percentage, progress percentage.
Right.
It's got some nice emojis and stuff. I can share the formula for this as well in it. I've already shared the formula, so you can maybe add a link to that.
For sure. I love it.
Yeah.
I know some people have taken it, I think, a little bit further too, with their current result and target result actually being based on like another database of actions and how complete and how many items of those are complete. But I'm like, that I'm not ready for that yet. It's another level.
Yeah, nice.
But I don't know if you find this too, Alex. Like, do you ever find like you go to a place where like maybe you've over-engineered it, then you have to take a couple steps back? And I've heard that from a lot of folks where they're sort of going a little bit crazy with tables and stuff, and then you're like, wait a second, this is just too much effort to maintain. And then you kind of figure out what's the best fit for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like figuring out when to create a new table as well versus adding another column. Can be really tricky with Notion, but that's why it's been useful coming from the sort of Salesforce administrator background, because the way that the tables work there is like a table would be a certain type of record. So let's say you're tracking events, for example, you obviously have like a specific set of different bits of information that you want to record about events. And then as soon as you want to track people, that's a different table because you've got like a separate set of information. So just having that kind of framework to work from is really useful.
Another question did pop up, unless you wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that. Michael asked, are you using Notion as your calendar, or do you use another calendar app when scheduling the meetings with customers?
I do use another calendar app, I'm afraid.
I do too, yeah.
Yeah, just it's just too much hassle to kind of keep everything in sync otherwise. But for things like opportunities, I would use Notion for that, where you're kind of keeping track of the key meetings, because I'd be using Notion to keep notes about my meetings. And actually, I would have a template. I haven't set this up in this template, but I would have template pages for my meetings, so that I make sure that I have like a really easy to insert agenda and kind of answer all the key questions that I'd want to answer, record those in Notion, and then that would obviously be linked to the opportunity, so you have the complete history of your discussions with the customer as well. But if it wasn't something like that, then I would just use Google Calendar probably.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way too. Like whenever I'm dealing with time sensitive things, I'm always kind of referring back to my calendar. But it almost sounds like Notion's more of like the big picture, like what's happening, right? But the nitty gritty is like, okay, I've got a call at 2 p.m. today. I'm like checking my calendar. That's where the links are.
Yeah, exactly.
Mark asked, quick question about your progress. Those are coming from a number. Is it possible to show progress for a non-number data?
Yeah, sure. So if you wanted to base it on the status, for example, essentially all this is doing a bit of a calculation. So it's saying if this divided by this equals this, give me that. So if you just wanted to say if my status equals behind, then give me a cross. You can definitely adapt the formula like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you sort of had that in your CRM too, didn't you? Right? It was like if this is unqualified or if this is contract waiting or whatever. There was like a, that
Yeah, for
status
the
impacted.
probability.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like I might even want to simplify some of mine like that as well. Um, okay, so how do you manage your tasks slash projects related to opportunities once they're won, or even for tasks that relate to winning that opportunity?
Yeah, so the task related to winning the opportunity would still, well, if those weren't meetings, then maybe you would want to create a tasks database as well. And it would probably be a pretty similar structure to the meetings database, where you'd link it to contacts, accounts, definitely the opportunity, obviously, um, and then assign those to specific people. Um, you could even have if your company has a master tasks database so that everyone can see what everyone's working on at the same time in one place, you could still just link the tasks to your opportunities there. And then when it comes to managing tasks after you've won the opportunity, I would probably create what I used to do at my previous company was we had a separate type of record that the relationship management team would use to kind of record everything that they were working on that related to a particular customer, um, because they would record a whole different set of information that the salespeople just wouldn't need to worry about. Um, and then you could either use that to record your tasks or obviously link your tasks to that record, which would then still be linked to the opportunity. So um, yeah, the beautiful thing is just add another database as soon as you come up with
Right.
a new thing to record, and you're good to go pretty much.
Yeah, and just figuring out what relation makes the most sense, right? Like if you don't already have a database inception. Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I generally speaking would have like a projects database, and I have my master task database, and then I can also connect my project to the client, which is in like that's my CRM is my clients or whatever. So there's a couple of different ways you can kind of um, maneuver that information. But I almost all of my to-dos come from the master task database. So if I knew that it was like follow up with X client, I would make that a task in my database, and I could also at mention that client's record or have a relation or a couple of different ways just to make it quick to kind of jump over there and make sure you've got all the record information that you need to access.
yeah,
One woman
yeah,
show here. Yeah. Freya says, yeah, I'm a one woman show here. So if I miss one task, no one reminds me but Notion. Yeah, that's why I would definitely, uh, you know, go from your master task database and just make sure. I also do like a recurring follow ups item. So I love the Kanban board view, and I have just a recurring board view for some of my tasks. And so it'll be like, what are my weekly follow ups, my Instagram messages. Like there's just a couple things that I know I need to get back to people, and I want to clear that out for the week. So for yourself, maybe it's client follow ups, or there might be some recurring tasks. And then in the body of that task, I might be like, follow up with Brian, follow up with whoever, and I can link those immediately to that record. And that's kind of how I handle it as a mostly one woman show as well.
yeah, yeah. Freya's just reminded me actually. Uh, you can obviously still set reminders for these tasks as well.
Right.
So yeah, just because it's on the table, that's still good to go. So just have Notion
Yep.
remind you
Set
there.
yourself set yourself all the reminders. And if the meetings database too is helpful. Like my daily journal is connected to my meetings database as well, and so in my weekly agenda, I can see all the meetings that are coming up that week. So it's like show yourself the things that are most important for you to see on a day-to-day basis. If the meetings or the products or the clients or the opportunities, make yourself that dashboard that's going to make the most sense for you to see on a day-to-day and week by week basis.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Do you have quite a lot of different linked views that kind of show you filtered views of your tasks, or?
I do, but there are a few key ones that I tend to view all the time. So most of my time is spent in my weekly agenda. and my weekly agenda has an embedded view of my task database that's a Kanban board style that shows like what has to get done today, what could be done tomorrow, what's coming up next, and then what's kind of later or recurring. And so that's the view. That's my preferred view after, 2 years of like messing around in Notion, and that's the view that I find most helpful. And then on a day-to-day basis, I'll go into my journal and I'll show the same view, but I'll only show it like basically just show today's tasks, and I'll filter it to, at the end of the day, only show everything where the last updated date was today. And that way I can kind of see a list of all the things that were checked off that day. So
Nice. Yeah.
Always finding new ways to, there's so many options. And yeah, that's something to remember, Freya, is that your dashboard might work well for a little bit, and then you might decide, like this is not helpful, or I'm never using this database or whatever. And you get to kind of update it as you go. Like one of the things I changed in my headquarters was I actually moved my goals to the top, because before I was kind of doing granular, like daily, weekly, monthly, and I was going down. I'm like, wait a second, I want to be remembering my goals as the most important thing, because in my journal and my weekly agenda, I'm a little bit more in the day to day. So I feel like my dashboard, I wanted it to be more, hey, what are you working toward? What are your big goals? And you get to decide that and kind of test the waters and switch it up if it's not working. Another question came in from Mark. He said, I'd love to link Notion to other apps through Zapier. Wouldn't we all? Or Microsoft or Microsoft Power Automate. I know if it will be possible in the future. Sorry if that's too specific or random. I mean, we know that Notion's in progress with their API, and we don't necessarily know specific dates of when that's coming. But I do believe there will be ways to connect Zapier for sure. I'm assuming, I don't want to like put words in Notion's mouth. I don't know what you know, Alex.
Yeah. It's just it's such a hotly requested feature, right? That you can't imagine them not doing it. Or maybe even, I mean, for some things, like another popular one is just being able to update one column when another column's changed. Like maybe they'll even build that in. It's the kind of thing that you can do with Salesforce too.
Right.
So, yeah, we're all keeping our fingers crossed, I guess.
Crossed. And I know, like, I've chatted with a lot of people who said, like, oh, I'd love to use Notion, but I can't because there's no API, or like it just isn't as automated. But I, like, my personal opinion is that the benefit I've gotten of using Notion, even without that automation, is it's just so much, there's so much value there, even without that automation, that to me, it's worth those little extra steps for me personally. And in some ways, for example, sometimes adding things manually it's me being a little bit more mindful and noticing, like, oh, that's interesting. That's how many sales I had this week. That's how many, like, I'm actually putting that data in, and I'm just noticing more of what's happening, because it's not just sort of happening behind the scenes, if that makes sense. So of course, there's some things that would be more convenient to automate, but I do find I'm a little bit more aware of what's actually happening from a day-to-day basis, which I kind of like.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. Nate said, me and my long distance girlfriend started using Notion recently for organizing date nights. I love that. Courtney has an amazing database. I got to see that in Toronto, how they decide what movies they want to watch together. There's so many fun ways that you can do that. Yeah. We have entertainment database. So as part of my journal too, I track like what shows am I watching, what video games am I playing, and I can see like what dates and kind of how much time am I spending on these different parts of my life. So it's pretty nerdy. You can kind of take it as far as you want. I know board game nights, and there's some D&D, Dungeons and Dragons stuff that people have been setting up. That's been pretty neat to see what people are doing.
Yeah,
try negotiating. The negotiating
Nice.
stage. That's great. Does anyone else have any questions relating to either what we've seen, or is there something that you want more clarity on, or happy to clarify any of this stuff. Both, I don't know how much time you spend in Notion, Alex, but I feel like we probably both spend a lot.
Yeah, I was so happy when I got my company to adopt it, and I could just use it all day long, basically. So.
What was the process like to convince your company to use it?
Yeah, pretty similar to the one I mentioned earlier, actually, where it was just like before I even joined, I've been doing some preparation, so all of my notes about what I have planned were in there already, and that was broken down into tasks, and I was like, oh look, you can use this, and like you put your tasks on the board, and everyone can see what was going on throughout, like what everyone else was doing. Yeah, and then it kind of just went from there. And definitely like the most valuable thing that I've got from it has just being able to use the tables and um, once you get the hang of them, like it's obviously a feature, but once you get the hang of them, keeping
Change the world.
things organized, yeah, is just so much easier. So I'm slowly converting people to using like the power features and kind of leveling them up, but we're
Yeah.
getting there.
And when I got started too, I liked how visual it was, and like, oh, I can be messy and I can like chuck stuff wherever I want. And it was very organic and loose. And I really liked that I could still do that while my husband was very like, he's a programmer, it's tables, he was very much in these table views. And I was like, oh, that's so unattractive. Like I want it to look prettier. I want those emojis and stuff. But now I'm converted. I am totally on board with all of these relational database features, and it's just so powerful. I get it now. I get it. But it wasn't like that at the beginning, right? You layer in those use cases as you figure out what you need, and you don't have to kind of start right out of the gate with these pretty advanced setups and formulas and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and like sometimes I regress back as well. So even now, like I just use bullet points and the checklist to like check boxes in a standard list to manage my tasks because I just find databases are a bit clunky sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but at
It's
least
like
you've
it's
got
an
the
art to
freedom.
find just enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Freya asked, do you have any ideas for marketing efforts analytics databases?
So this isn't actually something that I'm using Notion for at the moment. Although I have thought about it a little bit. Well, actually, I say that I am using it for. So one of the nice ways that I'm using the relational databases is I'll plan all of my social media posts in a Notion table, and then set myself a reminder to check the analytics for those particular posts
Mm,
after say a week and keep a record in Notion of how they did. Um, so that is literally just a single table with the content in it, links to the posts, and then columns to record all of the different kind of metrics that I would want to keep an eye on. Um, and then
okay.
because that's a relational database as well, if it's blog content that I've shared on social media, for example, it gives you a really nice summary when you're looking at the blog post of, this post did got X number of views on Instagram and like this many clicks from Twitter and stuff. So um, yeah, I can share that structure as a database if you like later on.
That'd be cool.
I'd have to create it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I can definitely do that.
It's like gotta clear out the real data that's in there and turn it into a template. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I've never like I have my content hub database and I'll, post my tweets in there and things like that, but I haven't actually gone back and added that extra layer of info, which I think would be very useful, even just to see, oh yeah, like people were way more engaged about this topic than this one. Maybe I should create more content around this, right? I think
Yeah,
that's really great.
exactly. Yeah.
That's really great. Cool. Yeah. And if anyone has any templates too, like feel free to share them in the sidebar as well. And I can add them to that link because again, everyone has a different way of approaching it. And there's so many different businesses out here and there's, solo business owners, teams, everyone's got these different workflows and it's great to share the knowledge. Cool. Um, yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to show in your setup or things you're excited about? Does anyone else have any questions?
I mean, I can show you the list of my templates. Oh, did I just break the screen sharing or is that okay?
I know I just zoomed in on your screen.
Oh, cool, cool. Okay. Uh, yeah, I mean, if anyone wants me to run through any of the templates in this list, then just shout.
Right, the Jira
Two
stock
to choose from.
can. Yeah, wedding photos, calculator running balance, habit tracker. Yeah, is there anything anyone wants to see Alex zoom in on in more detail? Freelance, anything related to freelancing? The
Cool.
photographer, freelance photographer. That's cool.
Okay, yeah, cool. Um, yeah, so this was just a template I created for a friend. They wanted a way to track their jobs, and then there was some quite neat ways that you could use Notion to record like the status of their equipment and obviously trips and things that they've got coming up. So
That's
just
cool.
taking advantage of link previews there to embed a couple of things. And then this is a list of jobs. Pretty similar structure actually to the CRM where I've broken the templates down. So you've got your contacts separately, date of the job, status. Obviously, this turns into a really nice Kanban view. So you can just kind of drag and drop your different tasks as you go. And then price, so that's kind of useful. Tax if you pay that. Like just working out a percentage of the price of the job, and then the value of all of your work after you've done it. And then that turns into a highlights database, which just using the gallery obviously is perfect for a photographer. So it's a really nice way to build a little bit of a portfolio for yourself.
Yeah.
And then with the equipment, what I did was just create a place for them to list all of their different items. And then where you've got this equipment insurance database, it's pretty simple. But basically, one of the problems they were having was just knowing when their equipment was covered by the insurance and when it wasn't.
Yeah.
So that just gave them a way to record the date when the insurance expired, and then using a Rollup property, you've got that kind of flag there for you on your main database on the main page.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then trips, just to break those out, and obviously record the dates, number of days, your highlights. So when you're viewing the specific trips page, you can see some of your best shots just there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There was another question that popped in. It might be somewhat unrelated to this part, but Matt was asking a quick, perhaps basic question. I'm struggling to work with roll-up fields, summing them up, etc. Any formula tips for working with roll-ups? I'd be curious, Matt, if there's the problem with summing them up in terms of like, I know there are some restrictions on like if it's a number, like the summary and whatever. Oh, you're muted, Alex. Did I mute you? Did you mute you? Weird. You're suddenly muted. Oh, he's frozen, I think. Yeah, Matt, I don't know if you can clarify if there's anything, concatenating, not summing up numbers. And that might depend if your field is numbers or text. Yeah, you might have some limited options with your rollups depending on the kind of. Can you give a specific example of, I guess, the type of thing you're trying to roll up? Because I know what you mean. I've definitely had some trouble when I've tried to like pull in some data and it wasn't quite what I wanted. Let me know if you can clarify that, and maybe there's room to share something around rollups. I don't know if we lost Alex. I can I can see his screen, but I can't hear him. Huh. Weird. He's frozen for you guys too? Aw, sad. Gross margin, revenue from one table, costs from another. Yeah, rollup fields are in number formats. And Matt, I don't know if you're able or interested, if you want to come up on screen and we could actually workshop your situation. Be happy to do that. We've got a couple more minutes. I don't know if your like setup is ready to show, ready for prime time. Alex, if you do come back, feel free to hit me up in the chat and I will invite you back on screen. Okay, no worries, Matt. And Matt, I don't know if you saw last week's episode. We did go into a little bit more about how the rollups work. Not in a ton of detail, but I feel like we could probably do a whole office hours just on rollups, formulas and rollups. So maybe we can schedule a future episode to go into a little bit more detail with the rollups. I definitely use them a lot in my setup. Yeah, it's hard to answer without a little bit more context, but I will add that to the list of our upcoming episodes because I don't think we've actually covered rollup specifically. Yeah. Okay, cool. I will definitely add that to the list and we'll do a whole thing on rollups. I think Alex's screen is. Oh, I can actually see him moving on his screen, but I can't see him. Okay, I'm going to close that. Video anyway. Freya asked, random, but I have different categories of contacts for work. Any suggestions on benefits of a master file versus two different databases? Ooh. And Freya, is this like two different works, like two different parts of your business? Because I think I've had a sort of similar thing where I wasn't sure if I should only put active clients in one database versus just connections and people that I want to maintain contact with. I have found it easier to keep everyone in one database and to give people either a category or a status or something like that. But it really depends on your specific use case, what you're trying to. One is makeup artists and hair versus maybe stylists or other fashion creatives that I don't work with directly. Ooh. I think it depends on what the purpose of your contact database is. I sort of just have a people database, and so I will put people in there that I just kind of want to maintain contact with, maybe people I've spoken with on Twitter or what have you, and I just sort of apply the filters that I need. If you feel like that might be getting a little bit too unwieldy, maybe you could kind of have like an active clients database and almost have like a mirror database that would have very similar properties. And so that way, if there's a person you've been connecting with and you want to activate them as a collaborator, you could kind of move them into that database as needed. But I just tend to rely on filters for that sort of thing. Yeah, if they're all like possible, Ram had a good point. If they're all possible people, try to keep them in the same database to avoid that future duplicate data entry. Yeah, I mean, again, you can move people quite easily between databases as long as the properties of the database are similar. Yeah. Would you put clients mixed with collaborators? I do personally. Again, that probably really depends on your business and how you're using things, but I just sort of see it as like people that I'm working with, people that I'm collaborating with, because I do have my people database is connected to my meetings and also connected to my journal. So if I had like multiple databases of people to pull from, I think that would just take more work, I think, and make things take a little bit longer. Yeah. Can we have the same profile picture like people from Notion? There is like a recent There's a recent tool that someone released so that you can actually get a profile that does look like a Notion illustration. I will find that link and I will add it to the CRM link at the bottom. But yeah, Freya, I kind of mix everyone together and I just give them different properties. I find that's the easiest way to maintain that database. I mean, it's not like I have hundreds or thousands of people in that database, so I have no problem kind of keeping everybody together and just filter out what you want to see. I hope that's helpful. Yeah. Cool. Does anyone else have any other questions, things you want? I know we're at the hour, so might not be able to get too deep into anything else. We do have, I believe Francesco is on next week. And he's going to talk a little bit about his content management system, which I'm pretty excited about. So that's Francesco from Keep Productive. Super exciting. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Courtney. The Product Hunt Open Peeps. You can see that. Yeah, thank you, Alex. And I think he might be. Let's see if he's on now. I can invite him back up to say goodbye. Oh, I can't see him on here. Okay, so we'll have to just say thank you, Alex. Thank you for showing us your CRM and your OKRs. I will definitely add any links that we've mentioned today. I'll just add them to that CRM button below. And yeah, hopefully that is helpful for you. Let us know if this was useful. And if there's anything specific that you want to see in the future, we'll definitely do a roll-ups coming up soon. We definitely have more advanced formula stuff coming up with William Nutt. I know a lot of people enjoyed that formula last week. I think William did a really great job of breaking down formulas to the absolute basics. So hit me up on Twitter if you ever want to see something specific, and look forward to seeing you next week with Francesco. Thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Alex. Bye everybody.